Robert Pattinson's The Batman #2 in Jeopardy? I don't know, but let's take a look. Here we are at Geekosity. Mikey Sutton's Operation, written by Edwin Francisco and Mikey. So, here's the deal. So he goes into all of this. There was this article in Variety. It says, writer-director Matt Reeves is on track for a sequel with star Robert Pattinson, but the project remains in development and does not yet have a green light. Any future film is years away. So, after grossing $770 million globally, so the old regime would have given the go signal for Batman because they wanted to get away from Snyderverse and all that stuff. Fine, but that's not what it was projected to perform. It didn't get to the $1 billion number. It would have been completely safe had it done that. And that's still less than Batman vs. Superman. Granted, they're separated by some years, but still, remember, Batman vs. Superman is when they originally panicked. And they sort of panicked after Man of Steel as well. They didn't reach Marvel money. So, and all the shenanigans began, and, well, you know the whole story. So, but, and the times are different. So, that's good money. So, based on that, yeah, I'd give it a sequel, even though I didn't like the film. I thought it had so many flaws in it. Its high points are basically mood and atmospherics and whatnot. That's a problem. But then again, same thing easily could be said of Batman vs. Superman. The theatrical release is a terribly flawed film, but the director's cut is better. However, still very flawed. That's the problem ongoing with DC. It's like, well, there's some good points here, but then there's this. And overall, that's why it's like, why not just abandon the thing entirely and start over? Well, they can't, because there's some diamonds in the rough. They had some successes amongst the flops. And so it's kind of, they're stuck. And still kind of stuck here as well. So people are getting nervous about it. I think the HBO Max shows that were supposed to spin off out of it are probably dead. Because the emphasis is now under Zaslav. They want to build the theatrical outings, and he wants a more cohesive DCEU. So that would mean these side movies and whatnot would go by the wayside. But even though, Batgirl was a part of that, but he scrapped that one. So, so he's got his 10-year plan for DC Comics Properties. Batgirl won't be a part of it. Well, that film won't be. I think it's possible that Leslie Grace will still hold the role once they reintroduce her. Certainly, if Ben Affleck is back, he's back for the reshoots and for Aquaman 2, which is another sign of people who want Robert Pattinson Batman might be worrisome that Ben Affleck is back and he'll be their Batman and there won't be two Batman. But in his abandoned film, there was supposed to be a Batgirl in it. So if they revisit that story, perhaps Leslie Grace can play the Batgirl of that. Supergirl is gone, but even if the Flash film gets scrapped, which is now looking more like a possibility, I think Sasha Calle could still maintain the role if they do a proper Supergirl story involving Superman, hopefully Henry Cavill. And that would be great. They could do that. So they might be fine, but the rest of it, not so much. So Batgirl's gone, the movie. And if Flashpoint film is done, then we won't see Sasha Calle's original performance as the character, but maybe later. So it says, he keeps the Snyderverse timeline, sort of, kind of. One way or another, some form of fashion, the Snyder tropes continue because, again, there was diamonds in the rough. So you got Aquaman. They're going to hold on to him. I'm assuming there will still be a Wonder Woman 3 despite the disaster of the sequel. But the first movie was very good and well-liked. And people liked her in that role. So odds are Gal Gadot will return as Wonder Woman in another film down the road as they're building up their DCEU universe and whatnot. So that's the deal. So the big thing about this is that this is outside of the DCEU. That's the problem. However, the Joker is getting his sequel. They've already announced that with, Lady Gaga, I guess, playing Harley Quinn in it and all this. Going to be this weird musical. So that's what they'll do. And but guess what? Joker made $1 billion. That's why it's safe. Otherwise, it was a one and done deal, and they move on. Batman didn't make $1 billion. It made a good chunk of change. So I still see the possibility. I still think there will be a sequel. It might be a little later than it ordinarily would have been, but I think it's still on. But then again, I mean, he's running the numbers. And he wants that DCEU deal to be solidified, and he wants one Batman for that. And if that's the deal, it might get the axe. But I still think I'm a bit dubious of that outcome for it. The other option here is all this excitement about Ben Affleck being an Aquaman. That might be all there is to it. I'm a little dubious on that at this point. I think there's a larger deal there. But let's just say that's it. And Ben Affleck is not returning as Batman overall. And so the Flash movie still gets released, and it introduces multiverse aspects to it all and storylines. And so that there is something of a reboot. And then Zaslav orders that Robert Pattinson's Batman is now in the DCEU. And if Reeves doesn't like that, well, he knows where the door is. And that's how that could work out. And so there you go. That's all you do. Logically and sensibly is what they should have done in the first place. But Reeves apparently didn't want to do that. He wanted his own pocket universe. And I suspect that's somewhat in his connection with Bad Robot and the muscle that they carried around for whatever reason. And gee, how'd that turn out? Because J.J. Abrams was going to have his own Superman and all that. So doing separate movies of their own thing, that's not what Zaslav wants. And looking at the market as it is now, he's got a strong argument in his favor for that. So that's why they didn't do it. Obviously, they said, well, Ben Affleck's gone. He's not doing Batman anymore. So your new Batman's Robert Pattinson. But he really wasn't. He was his own Batman in his own pocket universe and didn't want anything to do with the DCEU and all that. Well, that's a problem. And so, well, you just do another Batman. They were doing this. Well, they ended up having 3. Well, you throw Michael Keaton in the hopper, but that kind of doesn't count because he was going to be a retired Batman mentoring Batgirl or whatever. But the obvious thing would be, well, then you just have a new Batman. But they didn't do that. So those are the possibilities. Zaslav would rather that. Joker can be the side project. As they continue on, his main focus will be on DCEU. So that might delay this other Batman film franchise while they build up their DCEU stuff, and they'll make some room for it. The shows, the Penguin and Arkham Asylum and all that, that's probably scrapped. That would be more likely than the sequel being scrapped. So that's probably what they'll do. And as they go forward, they can return, I think, to HBO Max properties, spin-off TV shows, but they don't have their DCEU stable and functioning like where it should be to do stuff like that. Peacemaker performed, so it will get its second thing. So I think at some point when they've got a surplus of money, if they're producing billion-dollar DC movies fairly regularly, then yes, there'll be a surplus of cash to spend on extra projects that could possibly bring them some more, and that would be fine and all of that. And that makes room for things like this and for the Batman to finish its trilogy. And but meanwhile, there's the DCEU Batman. It's still not something they're going to like because they're going to worry that that's confusing. And it's just, for some people, it would be. But it is what it is. If they're all making money, who cares? So that's probably the likely thing, provided Ben Affleck is indeed back as Batman for the DCEU. And so there you go. Perhaps that's the outcome. Other than that, it's already decided there's not going to be a Batman 2. There might not be. But with the What did he say? 70? I thought I was going to say 77. The lucky 7. It's still a lot of money, so I think that's enough. But then again, that's just the supposed figure. There might be a little more losses in that promotion and whatnot that they'll look at and say it's not. We need to do better than that. Which, well, that would really be pretty bad. But anyway, I think that's the possibility. I think there still will be a sequel, but it might be a while. So there we go.